Last review of the day is going to be for The Mummy, not Lee Cronin's The Mummy, but The Mummy 1999 there. This was a classic film, I guess, among millennials there. We talked about millennial classic films before. Movies like Mean Girls, I think that falls into that category. And I think this is another one there where a lot of people who do romantically about this movie, are mostly people, our age there, talking about this movie. I'm a big fan of this movie myself there. I haven't seen it in a minute, so it's nice going back and revisiting this. And the reason why we're revisiting this movie is because, like I mentioned there, we do have a new movie coming out this week called Lee Cronin's The Mummy, which is vastly different from this. It's more, kind of horror based there. It seems like it's more focusing on that. You have the director from who did Evil Dead Rise there. With that. Now, I think I've seen some kind of reactions to it. Of course, like anything, early reactions, some of them are going to be really positive and super like, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. This is the greatest horror movie ever. And then some people are like, I don't know, it wasn't so good there. So I'm going to see it tomorrow, and we're going to give our review of it Friday there with that. But that's part of why we're doing it. And are you really excited to see this there, Nick and Neal?
I'm excited because it's a new film from Lee Cronin. I really loved what he did with Evil Dead Rise. He took a franchise that is, very near and dear to my heart and just found something new and interesting to do with it. And I'm curious to see what he does with The Mummy, even though a lot of the vibes I'm getting from the trailer are, oh, this is Evil Dead Rise again. And I hope I am wrong.
Okay. Interesting. What about you there?
I would say I'm mildly excited about it. I mean, I'm sure it'll be good, but I'm just not. It just doesn't grab my attention as much as I think other movies do. But I hope it's good.
Okay. So with this Mummy 1999, people, a lot of comparisons. Obviously, Indiana Jones is going to be the main comparison. I always say it's the best rip-off Indiana Jones movie. If you're going to have a rip-off Indiana Jones movie, I think this one is the best one there. If you want to talk about video games, well, Uncharted's probably got that on lock as far as that kind of goes there. And this movie was directed by Steven Sommers there. He's done some other movies like this before. He did G.I. Joe there. He also did Van Helsing there as well, which was in 2004, I think Van Helsing was
right.
He did that as well there with that. And so I think, well, looking at some of his resume, I think it's probably the best one probably the best movie he's done there with that as well there. And there was 2 sequels to this movie. And it's about to be a 3rd sequel because they did announce there is going to be a Mummy 4 with Brendan Fraser returning there. And you have Rachel Weisz, who also is returning there. So you got a lot of the original cast from this first movie who is returning for the 4th one there. I know they replaced Rachel Weisz in the 3rd movie, Tomb of the Dragon Emperor there. They had Maria Bello, who was in that one.
I just imagine they're just going to pretend that didn't happen.
Yeah, I think they said I think Sage was telling me they're going to basically retcon the 3rd one. So I guess they're going to hand wave the 3rd one away. Like, okay, that one kind of didn't happen there.
They're pulling a Superman Returns, basically.
Yeah. And maybe Brendan Fraser's gonna give us that good kiss like he gave Rachel Weisz in this movie, so he can make people forget what happened in this in the 3rd movie there. So what is happening in this kind of movie here of the Mummy 1999 there? Well, you have they tell the story of this evil kind of guy there who was sentenced to death there. He was fucking around. He was cheating. He was fucking the emperor's mistress there.
He was the side dick for the pharaoh's mistress.
Which is a no-no because the pharaoh's only allowed to have mistresses and play around there. So that was kind of a big no-no there when they got caught. He got sentenced to death, and then so did she there. But he was kind of given like a curse type death there, where he's able to be resurrected there. And when he's able to be resurrected, he's able to become all powerful there, become this, be invulnerable there. Basically, would be able to take over the world there. And this kind of gets discovered, gets awakened because you have Brendan Fraser's character there, who in this plays Rick O'Connell there, which that sounds like a good, strong, strapping name, Rick O'Connell there, who is a part of the French Legion there, who accidentally awakens the mummy that you have there. And then you also have an archaeologist in this as well, who's the Rachel Weisz character who plays Evelyn there, along with her brother Jonathan there, who's played John Hannah. And so there are a crew of people there who are going there because she wants to have Brendan Fraser's character take her to the tomb there and to actually see it. You know what I mean? And actually see what this whole thing is all about there. And then amongst this whole kind of race to this tomb, you have other adventurers, other diggers there who are as well there is who are also being shown there. I'll pass around, get you guys' thoughts on it. Nick, what are your thoughts there on The Mummy 1999, man?
Yeah, this was the first time I'd ever sat down and watched the first Mummy all the way through. I'd seen Mummy Returns, I'd seen Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, but going back and watching this film and thinking about like the year 1999 as a whole, a year that gave us so many incredible films like Matrix, Fight Club, Phantom Menace is among those, The Iron Giant. And seeing this film and seeing like the context of in which it was made, the late 90s was kind of like this time where Hollywood didn't really know what it was that was going to hit. So they just greenlit everything. So they make this film, which is essentially like the millennial Indiana Jones. A lot of people, at least in our generation, I think connect with this more than the like later indie films. And watching this movie, it's just a great, fun, action-packed adventure film. It's grounded by the performances of Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz. The movie, I think it's a great gateway to horror because I know it was straight nightmare fuel for me with especially the scarabs. I don't fuck with bugs at all, and that scared the shit out of me. Those scarabs were scarier than Imhotep was for me.
Oh, absolutely. Those bugs were.
And especially because they crawl in the skin which was also kind of gross there that kind of happens what they do. And they also, or they'll just eat you alive. 1,000 of these things.
They burrow inside of you and eat you from the inside out.
Eat you
There's
from
a
the
couple.
inside.
There's a couple pretty gross effects for a PG-13 movie in this movie. I was kind of surprised by that, especially a 1999 PG-13 movie.
Yeah. What are some of your thoughts here, Neal, on this?
So I agree with all the sentiments of Nick. I think this is a very fun and very campy but very enjoyable movie. One thing that did kind of impress me is just the fact that this is a remake of the old Universal Studios Mummy movie from the 1930s, and that movie was played much more of a straightforward horror movie with like the lumbering mummy and like, oh, we got to run away from this kind of thing. What's interesting about this movie to me is the fact that it totally changed genres. Like, it is still a horror film, but it's much more of like a action adventure horror film than a standard one. And I thought that change in genre really gave what could have been a really stale premise a really interesting lease on life, and it made the characters like Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz and Arnold Vosloo as Imhotep, and even Oded Fur, who shows up later in the movie, have a lot of fun with the premise that could have been really stale because it's a remake of a very old movie at this point. But yeah, Steven Sommers directs this movie really well, and it feels like a classic kind of campy Hollywood adventure movie, and it's really enjoyable.
Yeah. Brendan Fraser.
It feels like a love letter to like Indiana Jones, the same way that Indiana Jones was a love letter to like the 40s like adventure serials.
Right.
And I feel like what works about this so well is that that even though the material is played fairly straight, like all of the horror elements of this are played fairly straight, the cast, they are sincere, but they're not playing it too seriously. Like Brendan Fraser, I feel like he was a master at at working within the absurdity of whatever project he was in, but still taking it seriously.
Yeah. And Brendan Fraser, I mean, he had the perfect mix because he had the good leading man looks, but he also had the humor that worked for him as well there. At this point, he'd already did George of the Jungle at that point, which was 97.
Yeah, my favorite thing is that George of the Jungle is apparently what got him this role.
Yeah, and there's a moment where he even kind of looks like George in the jungle, like where he's captured there, and he's got kind of this wild looking hair, and he even kind of looks a little bit like from his role in George of the Jungle there. Also, Encino Man was kind of big for him as well. That was kind of like a good comedic role for
Yeah,
him as
yeah, because
well.
this was after like a lot of his comedic roles, like Encino Man, like George of the Jungle, like
Mhm.
Bedazzled, which I think is an incredibly underrated movie. And this was kind of like his like more serious quote unquote turn as an actor.
Right.
Mm, yeah. So that's pretty awesome there. And then you mentioned kind of the horror of it. So this is the scarab here that you have where we see kind of a little bit of effects. I'll play a little bit of it here, where we see what it kind of just give you a taste of what it does here.
Uh, yeah. Nope. 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 Mm. Oh hell
uh,
no.
so you got that kind of element of it. Yeah, so that was kind of some terrifying stuff there with
And
that.
and something that I think doesn't get brought up enough about this movie is that all of the stuff with like Imhotep actually awakening, all of the stuff with all of the horror, that doesn't really come in until like an hour into the movie.
Mm,
But you're
Yeah.
I feel like so drawn in by the characters and so entertained by this adventure they're going on that the movie sucks you in. I try to picture what watching this movie cold in theaters would look like.
mm,
Yeah, it
yeah.
does a really good job of setting up its characters and its world before introducing the mummy. Like you said, it does admittedly take a little bit too long, I think, for the mummy to show up, but it they do a really great job of endearing you to Rick and Evie and that whole gang and making you buy into this world. Because, like you said, Brendan Fraser, he's done a lot of comedy movies before, but
Mhm.
like he's in the thick of the action. He's doing the stunts, he's like doing the jumps and the dives and like everything. So it adds a layer of authenticity to like the seriousness of the situation and his role in it. And I thought
Mhm.
they did a really good job of balancing out like the campy elements of it, but also making it seem like this is a real action movie and a real like dangerous premise that they're all in.
Mm, yeah. And that so you have a lot of they're in Egypt, so you have a lot of Arab people that are in the movie as well. Some of the portrayals, maybe haven't aged the best there. With like I
Yeah.
mentioned, I just see that one guy we saw in that scene who gets killed by the scarab there. So he's kind of like the guy to Rick O'Connell and Evelyn and John Hannah's character there, Jonathan. So yeah, he's the person there that's kind of leading them there and helping them out. With that, so some of that isn't always the best, and then you also have the character of Benny, who's also in this, who's played by Kevin J. O'Connor there, who is like the ultimate just rat fuck weasel character.
He
And
he is the biggest scumbag in this movie, but he is so much fun to watch.
Right.
Yeah, like he is this complete coward, complete
He, he
sniveling there.
he's like if you threw a Safdie brothers character into a horror movie.
Yeah. And then him and
But
Brendan
hey
Fraser are
guys,
great in that.
he made it to the other side of the river, so that's all that matters.
Yeah, and that's I always love that. I'm gonna play that. That's my favorite line between because him and Brendan Fraser have this really good back and forth. Because like it's just such an annoyance there for Brendan Fraser's character, how much he hates Benny and how Benny gets on his nerves, and they do a great thing there. But this was always my favorite bit of it. You have then, and before this scene, we see that Brendan Fraser's character threw him off the boat that they were going using to travel to Egypt there. But here we go right here with this scene.
Hey! O'Connell! It looks to me like I've got all the horses!
Buddy, looks to me like you're on the wrong side of the river.
It gets loose!
uh And he ends up working with the mummy. That he becomes like the servant for the mummy character there,
My
who's played by
favorite Yeah, my favorite thing, yeah, he's played by Arnold Vosloo, Imhotep is. But my favorite thing about that scene is he just starts cycling through different religious totems and different different prayers.
yeah.
Right.
So yeah, Arnold who plays him, and a lot of thing about this movie people also talk about is how attractive the cast is of the movie. There, you do have Brendan Fraser there, you got Rachel Wise there, you have Oded Fahir there as well. There,
Hmm.
who probably is one of the more positive Arab representations because he's like a strapping hero type guy there. So you have that. At least you have at least one good one there with that.
And
Um,
fun fact about Oded Fur, he would actually play Dr. Fate in Justice League Unlimited years later.
oh, nice. Okay.
And Ra's al Ghul in Young Justice.
Yeah.
Very awesome there. And I don't know if is the actor Arab in real life there or
He is Israeli.
gotcha. Okay, so he's Israeli there. So yeah, so this role was promised to him 3,000 years ago. He knows that. Yeah, so what did you all think about the kind of Arab representation in the movie there? Do you think some of that stuff hasn't aged the best there with it?
Hmm,
Uh,
I don't think it's like age the best, but I also understand what kind of movie that Stephen Summers is trying to go for. He's trying to make this love letter to like the 40 serials in the same way that Indiana Jones was. And
Yeah,
that movie didn't have the best representation either.
yeah. And they even had brown face. So you had one guy Benny in brown face. So it's like, hey, truly
right.
representative of the 30s and 40s there. So you had that. What do you think, Neil?
Yeah, it is definitely a bit of a sign of the times where like they probably could have done a little bit better with the Arab representation, like maybe making one of the maybe making a couple more of the characters be more like active participants in the story, but it didn't really bother me all that much. It's definitely just more of like a you know what we do this better now kind of thing.
Mm. And when they bring the mummy in, obviously this movie being 1999, I mean, some of the visual effects I think still kind of hold up there. I mean, there's the scene that people know of, like the where he creates like this huge sandstorm there, where he puts his kind of uses his abilities and magic there, and where they're in the plane. I think that still looks really good. I think that still looks really
Yeah.
good. And when you first see him, kind of where he's his kind of mummified figure, because at that point when he creates the sandstorm, he's already fully got his body back. And the way he gets his body back is he just steals parts from someone else, takes their
Right.
eyes and takes their, tongue and everything like that. But what you all think about the effects in the movie and how well those things have aged in it?
I thought the special effects I thought they aged pretty well. I mean, there's a certain rubberness to them that kind of that's kind of indicative of like 90s CGI, but I think it holds up very well.
Mhm.
I wasn't like actively distracted by how bad they were. Like,
Mhm.
like say The Mummy Returns, which has noticeably worse special effects than this movie does, but the ones in this movie I think hold up well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
completely agree. I feel like with the late 90s, this was also I think like the time of like Jurassic Park. The CG was like used sparingly, and there's almost I think this uncanny valleyness to a lot of Imhotep's powers and the effects, and that it's not supposed to look natural.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do. That is a good point. I think the fact that it's a supernatural mummy who's like
Mhm.
working sand and all these kind of crazy stuff makes the special effects,
Mhm.
age in the movie a bit more than if they were trying to be more realistic with what the mummy was doing.
Mhm.
Yeah. And a big selling point with this movie, as Neil mentioned before, is how effective it is at being such a fun adventure type movie there. Having such a great cast, having all this great chemistry there, especially between the two leads. I mean, with a movie like this,
Mhm.
doing something like Romancing the Stone or, like even like an Indiana Jones there, where he has like a love interest in his movies there, you need a good chemistry between the two leads there. And that's something also people remark about this movie is how well it kind of handles that of seeing
Mhm.
these two people, feel like, sparks are really flying off the screen and everything like that, which is kind of rare. You kind of see that nowadays there, I feel like in movies. And here's like an example of kind of their chemistry that worked really well in between Rachel Weisz and between Brendan Fraser there, I feel like, in the movie.
Jonathan, you're meant to catch the sun with that.
So what are these old mirrors for?
Ancient mirrors. Some ancient Egyptian trick, you'll see.
Here, this is for you. Go ahead. It's something I borrowed off our American brethren. I thought you might like it. You might need it for when you're yeah. What are you looking at?
Also, fairly accurate to how I would act around Rachel Weisz.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, she is stunning in this movie. Yeah, she is,
This
really
is how-
beautiful there.
This is how Daniel Craig feels every day.
Imagine
Yeah.
being Daniel Craig. Oh, look at me. I was James Bond. I'm in Knives Out. I'm married to Rachel Weisz. Man, fuck that guy.
I know.
Jeez.
But yeah, Brendan Fraser is just so good in this movie. This is like this might be my favorite role he's ever done.
Yeah.
More than the whale. More than that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
completely agree. This is that charm and that charisma that just feels effortless, and it makes Fraser such a captivating performer to watch. And I completely agree. I think like this is probably my favorite Fraser performance next to Bedazzled.
And one last thing about Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz, I do like how in the sequels they really go out of their way. They really evolve their relationship in a natural way. Like a lot of times in these sort of action movies, when the sequel comes around, they like go back to square one and build up the relationship again. I'm looking at you, Legend of Zorro. But like in the sequels, they get married in Mummy Returns and they have a kid. And I do like how the relationship just builds naturally on, from movie to movie as opposed to just resetting every time.
Yeah. And with this, I don't remember as much with the Mummy Returns as I do with the first one. And I don't know. I think I remember like it kind of isn't as good, and it's kind of maybe carried by the goodwill of the first one. So I think in this the Mummy franchise, I think because third one is bad. I don't really like the third one all that much.
That third movie is awful. But I remember really liking The Mummy Returns, and I cut a little bit of it on today because I knew we were doing the show. And yeah, that's something that struck me. You don't see a lot of action blockbusters, especially sequels, where they don't reset the lead couple's dynamic. You get to see like a positive example of like this very healthy and very loving relationship between Rick and Evie.
Yeah. So you do have that. So I'll probably go back and watch it. I mean, I'm in the mood to watch more Mummy stuff, so I'll probably watch The Mummy Returns as well there with that. But do you guys think that? So definitely the first one is the best one there. Okay.
Yeah,
You can't top the original,
Mm.
or
Yeah,
the remake.
yeah, I think it's a pretty definitively better, but yeah, I think it's pretty definitively better.
Okay. Any major issues you guys with The Mummy 1999?
Nothing really for me. Nothing really stuck out on this viewing as like what would be an issue for me. There is, a little bit of wonky special effects, especially towards the third act of this movie, but I feel like it fits in with this story that they're telling.
Okay.
I would say I do think it takes a bit too long for the mummy to show up. Like you said, it's an hour and 50-minute movie, and the mummy doesn't really show up until an hour in. And to be fair, like you're establishing the world and the characters, so I wouldn't want to take that away. But I do think it takes a little too long for like, the stuff to hit the wall and to really get going with the mummy. But that's like the only real major issue I have with the movie.
Yeah, because when does she read off the book? Like where, obviously all these things people read out loud, all these things. It's like Evil Dead. It's like, oh shit, I gotta read this.
Yep. Now I'm not as perturbed of how much Lee Cronin's The Mummy looks like Evil Dead.
Yeah.
Right. It's right at the hour mark where she like reads the incantation and he like, pops up.
Yeah, so you got that. So yeah, it does take a little minute to get to the mummy, but it's a fun performance there. And again, I think everybody knows what type of movie they're in and having fun with that. The action in the movie, very much kind of that traditional type action. You have the Rick O'Connell character; he's got two guns, and then firing always the two guns. You got that kind of element in here as well.
Never needs to reload those two guns either.
Yeah.
Never reloads them 6 shooters.
You have it with that one dude. He had two guns. That shit, he ran. He was trying to fight. It's like, oh shit, he ran out there.
Was his name on the title? Was his name on the marquee? No.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's like, man, you're expendable. So you had that. Yeah, man, it was great watching this again. It was great going back and watching The Mummy, 1999. Like I said, I love this movie. I always have a lot of fun watching it. The sequels kind of have a little bit of a diminishing return, especially the third one. And we'll see what this fourth one is. It's the guys from Radio Silence that are going to do the fourth movie there. So let's see if they can add a fresh take on it. Something like that. I don't know. They're gonna have Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega be like sister mummies or some shit. They gonna fight them.
You know what? Sure, why not?
As long as we get the third act tradition of Melissa Barrera covered in blood, I'm in.
Yeah, you kind of got that element. So maybe she'll be in that. Maybe she'll be like a singing mummy. Maybe they'll do that. But yeah, so this was great there. So I mean, maybe see what they do in return of that. It's a classic action adventure that will harken back to those times that will make you kind of have good memories of those times, like you said, with the serials, like something Indiana Jones does, and I think it does a great job at that. Amazing cast up and down there. Chemistry is just off the charts, especially between the two leads there with Rachel Weisz and Brendan Fraser. Which if that kind of makes it or break it. If you don't have good chemistry, I think between the two leads, and a charming lead in Brendan Fraser, then I think that that kind of everything else will probably fall apart there. Today they'll probably put in like Glenn Powell and Sydney Sweeney or some shit there.
Right.
You know what I mean? They'll probably put in, which I don't mind Glenn Powell. No, that's Nick's guy. He loves Glenn Powell. Cloud there. And then Sydney Sweeney, who's Ava Braun and everything like that. But so they'll probably do something like that, and then it wouldn't have that same kind of effect there with it. But yeah, man, this is to me is absolute peak there for the Mummy. What about you, Neal? Final thoughts rating there.
Yeah, I think this is a really great sort of goofy throwback to classic Hollywood cinema, and on top of that, it's just a really good film on its own right. It's got all the action and thrills you would expect from a serial adventure film like this, and it really executes what it's trying to do extremely well. Like I said, maybe takes a little too long to really get to where the Mummy is, but I think it's it's great, and I would gladly revisit this several times over, and I think it holds up really well. So peak cinema. This is good. This is great.
Yeah. What about for you there, Nick?
Yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. Besides Raiders and what was the third one? It was
Temple of
Last Crusade.
Last Crusade. Yeah, besides those two, I don't think there's been a good Indiana Jones movie, and this was really scratching that itch for me. I think it's a fantastic, fun adventure film. It's like a great love letter to those kinds of movies, and I'm surprised how much of the horror of this works for a movie that is as goofy as this. Brendan Fraser, this is one of his all-timer performances. This entire cast is phenomenal. Yeah, this is damn near peak. This was just a joy to watch.
This movie, very successful movie. Very, very successful there. So on a budget, let me pull it up. I had it one more time.
On a budget of 80 million, its box office was 422.5 million.
That's a really good return.
$9.
Sixth highest grossing movie of 1999 there. Of course, the other movies being Tarzan there, which was fifth. You had The Matrix, which was fourth. You had Toy Story 2, which was 3, and you had Sixth Sense, which was 2, and then Star Wars Episode 1, which was number 1 there.
Boy,
9?
It was, yeah.
Yeah,
boy, all of those movies in the top 5 grossing movies are excellent movies.
Yeah, those are all like peak cinema. 99 is like one of the great years of Hollywood.
Yeah, no kidding.
Best movie of them all, Star Wars Episode 1 right there. And then I
Yeah.
didn't know this. So the Mummy had an animated series. I didn't know that.
Oh yeah,
Dude,
I remember this one.
every like 90s blockbuster movie got an animated series. Like Beetlejuice got an animated show, The Mummy did.
Remember RoboCop, the animated series?
Was this it right here?
Yeah, this was
Yes.
it. This was like the one they released after Mummy Returns.
And it's what like his son and everything like that. Okay,
Yeah, I think so. I think
Oh.
it's supposed to be like
family.
the O'Connell family.
Oh, okay. They don't look shit like
Yeah.
the people in the
They
movie.
don't
Like
know.
she got red hair. Like why does Evelyn got red hair? He's got blonde hair. Like what
Hey,
the fuck?
they were foretelling the recasting of Maria Bello, who
Oh,
also is
okay.
a redhead, but is like closer.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. Yeah, so I didn't even know they had an animated series with that one. A person that was rumored to be Rick O'Connell there. It seems like this dude has always been rumored to be in every fucking role ever in like the early 2000s, 90s there. Leonardo DiCaprio. He's rumored there.
Oh,
We just talking about he was supposed to be also American Psycho. He was in that role. Then he was also supposed to be Spider-Man. He was up for that role too. It's like, damn, this dude
mhm.
was fucking Leonardo DiCaprio there. Up for everything. So he had that as well there with that. So and then yeah, so hugely successful movie there. Big fans of it all around. And then a fun tidbit about the movie. So it says Brendan Fraser nearly died doing a scene in the Mummy there.
Yeah,
The
during
hanging scene.
the hanging scene that
Oh,
that is like towards the beginning of the movie, which hanging stunts are like terrifying to do. It's like so many things could go wrong on that one. It's like one of the most dangerous things you could do in a film
God.
production.
Yeah.
This is one of those things where you can just CGI it in this day and age, and no one will mind.
This is back in the day when men were men, man. They took the hanging, man. You know what I mean? That's what men do. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Pass out.
take that rope burn
You
like a
know,
man.
you got that. But yeah, apparently, yeah, he really did like almost die. I think he died, and they had to resuscitate. There, man, he should have
Lord.
sued the shit out of Universal. They'd be like, man, fuck this. But
I
yeah,
hope his contract had good insurance coverage on that day, because jeez.
there you had that.
Yeah,
But,
and a lot of the injuries he sustained like throughout these movies, a lot of that is contributed to why he kind of disappeared from Hollywood for a while.
Really?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah,
Interesting.
amongst the other thing.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, amongst that as well there. But yeah. So that was our thoughts on the Mummy, 1999 there.